Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of PCTV, a very special episode considering the month of March is Women's History Month. This episode, we're actually going to be honoring and interviewing some of our annual legacy awardees. And yeah, I'm Oluwatobi Ajimoko. You can call me Toby, and I am the recording secretary of the Rankin Mon Valley Pittsburgh section of the National Council of Negro Women. Miss Pat.
And I welcome you, just as Toby said. I am the correspondence secretary for the National Council of Negro Women the Rankin, Mon Valley, Pittsburgh unit. Tonight, we are going to bring you some very interesting ladies who have made a very important accent on our world, and especially in our area. So first, I'm going to introduce to you one of our members. Her name is Deneen Hood. Deneen Hood is going to tell you about the history of the Rankin Mon Valley National Council of Negro Women, and she's also going to tell you about the Legacy Luncheon and the history of that. Ms. Deneen?
Hi. Okay. Well, the history of the National Council of Negro Women, I thought it was just doing the Legacy Luncheon, but basically it was started by Mary and McLeod Bethune with a help from Eleanor Roosevelt. From there, what they did was they were supporting and helping the women in the communities, because the women were the ones that really more or less held down the fort. Not down held down the fort, but had to support everything that goes on. So there's things from beginning educational, social services, voting rights, anything that was going to be for the betterment of the community. Fast forward, we had a woman named Dorothy Height, who was born in Virginia. She was born in Richmond, Virginia, but as a small child, she moved to Rankin, Pennsylvania. In Rankin, Pennsylvania, she grew up at Emmanuel Baptist Church. She was just a sponge for everything going on around her. That area was the melting pot from immigrants from all over the world that came to work in the steel mills and other industries. And she, at her church, it was right across the street from a social service agency, and that was the Rankin Christian Center. She watched the new building being built, and as she watched it being built, she was all excited and eager to go in. The director would be there from time to time. When the director, she spoke to her, and after the building was built, she wanted to know, when can I go in? When can I go in? And the director would tell her soon, not yet soon. She didn't know why she couldn't go in, but she kept on. She was always there. They left the immigrant children when their parents were off working. They were teaching them English and Bible stories and different things. Well, English primarily. And one of the things Dorothy Height noticed is they were very rambunctious and somewhat disorderly. So she said, I could teach them Bible stories. From that's the way she got her foot in the door. And she actually immigrated to Rankin Christian Center because she did such a good job. The Y people from the Y, National Y, WCA noticed her, and so on and so forth. So many programs were instituted, from Negro Night to being full-fledged programs where the whole Rankin Christian Center was integrated. And this is just a short story. There's so much more to tell about her and her upbringing in Rankin and the things she went through. But I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to talk about the Legacy Luncheon. The Legacy Luncheon originated here when we restarted the chapter in the Pittsburgh area. Because Dorothy Height grew up in Rankin, we started, our original meetings were held at the Rankin Christian Center. We were in the library at the Rankin Christian Center trying to figure out how we could recruit, new members. And so sorry, how we could recruit new members. And one of the things that I had done in my church is we had senior citizens, older people, and we realized they had made such huge contributions to our community, and they had that village atmosphere, that we decided we wanted to honor those women, and they exemplified the things started by the original founders of the National Council of Negro Women. So that was how we started our Legacy Luncheon. We got people from our members, people that were in their communities. We sent letters and things out to the different churches and other nonprofit organizations, anyone we knew, to tell them, who in your community do you think exemplifies the mission? And that's how we started our honorees. From there on, one of our first honorees, I remember, was Mrs. Debbie Patterson, who just passed about a week and a half ago. And she was like one of those ladies that took everyone in. You had the mothers of the church that no one, everybody felt welcome. And that's the kind of people we would honor people, whether they were someone that had a lot of degrees to the people that just made that impact, like the beauticians in our community. They imparted so much knowledge. I hear some of our members talk now how they got so much knowledge and wealth of information by just sitting down and going to those beauticians and getting their hair done. And most of the time it was in one of those beauticians' kitchens. A lot of them did the hair at home. So basically, that's how we got and we started. And from what I understand, this is our 10th actual legacy luncheon we're having, but it started about 12 years ago. And I'm so glad to have so many beautiful ladies that are being honored now that's going to be on the program, and they'll go forward with you. Hope I didn't take up too much time, Pat. Okay.
No, you didn't. Thank you. One of the things that Mr. Neen didn't mention, the Legacy Luncheon honorees are all in their 80s.
Oh,
So,
yes.
and that was one of the things that really show you we are honoring the mothers and the founders of our communities. So they all are the age of 80 or older. And Miss W, who she just mentioned, who passed, was 103 when she passed. So
Yeah, she
we
would have been
are,
104 this month.
yes. So moving on, and thank you, Mr. Neen, for that information and the value of what we do and why we have started this program. So we're going to talk about a bunch of young ladies. Well, they're young at heart. Let's put it like that. These are ladies who have made a contribution to their communities and to their families and to their churches. These ladies are dedicated to serving and making a difference in their communities. They are social workers, PTA members, judges of election. There's sorority members, laboratory technicians, waitresses, healthcare professionals. These are ladies who are waitresses and technicians. And there's also ladies who are school bus drivers, students, and going back to college at this age, to keep enriching themselves. We have educators that are in the local school district or were in the local school district and are still working with their children. We have school counselors. We have supervisors, authors. We even have ladies who have dedicated, the majority of them have dedicated themselves to working within their religious organization, their churches, and they're constantly working and supporting those. Now we're going to show you the faces of these beautiful ladies who are enriching our lives. We have Sylvia Robinson, Nancy Travis Bolden, Velma Jackson, Dr. Beatrice Vassar, Lois Kane, Annie Carter, Harriet McWilson Cawley, Wilma Greathouse, Maribeth Jones, Dorothy Nesbitt, Louise Payne, Jocelyn Walker. These are the ladies that we would have honored this year at the 2020 Legacy Luncheon. But because of the pandemic, we were unable to have that function. But we didn't want to just say, okay, we put their names in the book. We are honoring them in that way. We want to take a moment to let you see these ladies and hear from some of them. So I'm going to turn it back over to Toby, and we're going to get right into meeting these wonderful women and their contribution to our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pat. So I see on the line we have 3 of our 12 lovely ladies, and I'm just going to go ahead and give a brief introduction of each of these extraordinary women. The first is Miss Nancy Travis Boldman, in the social work profession for many years, and also an avid tennis player and raised show dogs in her spare time, serving the community virtually your whole life. a lot of church involvement, and as I understand, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Next up, we have Miss Velma Jackson, raised 5 children and also worked in the community to better the community. A big churchgoer, you've worked a lot with outreach efforts, including Toys for Tots and food distribution efforts. Last but not least, we actually have Dr. Beatrice Vesser, who is an author of 2 poetry books, The Circle of Life and The Color Black. An educator for most of your profession, has been to 5 of the 7 continents and many countries within those continents. And also one of the first African-American teachers at the Ellis School in Pittsburgh. Many years with the 3 of you combined, doing amazing community outreach work. And I know most of us, including me, like a younger generation person, I'm just so curious and inspired by all 3 of you and your work. So if you don't mind, I would love to ask you ladies questions, and let's get started. So a general question for all of you ladies is, what does lifetime service mean to you? I know many of you have done community outreach work, yes, but you've all done it in different facets. So I just want to hear from all 3 of you about, what is lifetime service? What's community to you?
Go to go first.
Dr. Black, you may have to turn your mute off.
And any one of you can go.
My lifetime community work is, how should I phrase that? Helping people, which I have did practically all my life. Helping people who is in need, doing things for them, and giving out clothes, people who need them. My mom always did that, giving out clothes and cooking for them, and what else can I say? And helping out in the community, working with people quite a number of years ago. Also, how should I phrase that? As I said, helping people, doing favors for them, and I was very glad to do it. And other community work I did, I volunteered quite a number of years ago with the Well Baby Clinic, weighing up the children, the babies, changing diapers, and giving them books to read. And other community work that I did up where I live at was reading to the children and just talking to them and talking to their parents about raising their children from infant to adult life.
Thank you so much, Ms. Velma. Ms. Nancy, Dr. Beatrice, do you have anything to add?
Well, for me, it was just a part of what you do. As it's a part of your life. This is the way my brother and I were raised. This was the way my parents lived, and so it was just a normal, natural thing that you have responsibility to do things in the community that improve the lot of other people. As you know, you're not doing stuff for yourself. You're just trying to make things better. And this was just a normal kind of what happens in your life. I don't know how to explain it better than that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, some of the things that have been added, I think that I've done. And when you're teaching, you really have a great responsibility to all of the children and to do the types of things that will enhance their growth. I did at one time start a mother's club to help the children in the neighborhood and to provide them with all of the necessities that small children need, from taking them to the plays, the theaters, and introducing the arts and things to them. But anything that's in the community is something that I personally like to be involved in if it's going to make a betterment of life.
Thank you.
Thank you all three for your answers. That really does shed some light on community service. You make it all sound so natural and like it was the most natural thing in the world to help others. And that's how communities should be, right? So my first question actually is going out to Miss Nancy. So I hope you're ready. You've worked a lot in the social work profession, and that can be stressful, right? But in reading your bio, I read that you were an avid tennis player and you also raised show dogs with your husband. When you have such a stressful job like social work, would you mind talking about the importance of finding things you love outside of your profession and how that can help Black women be at peace?
Well, first of all, I did not find social work to be stressful. There were challenges in it, but I did not find it to be stressful. In terms of having other interests, I think there are two things. What you do for a living is what you do, but I don't believe that your career is who you are necessarily, solely. And I believe that if you're going to be really good at what you do, you have to have other things that you do when you're not at work. So I started playing tennis in high school.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, right. and played tennis in college. Was fortunate to have someone at college who did tournaments and things like that. Was quite good. And I learned a lot from that experience. And then when I lived in Pittsburgh the first time, because I've lived here twice, I belonged to a tennis club. Was just, seriously interested in tennis. My husband and I kind of fell into dogs. He as a child growing up, had raised pigeons.
Wow.
And they were award-winning things. And we ended up, as I said, we kind of wandered into it. And we had a friend who had dogs and raised them. And when we ended up with some dogs that were purebred, we started showing them. And it's an incredible experience. You meet all kinds of people. And that was what our weekends were for years. But what it means is that whatever you're doing, you do need a personal life. And if the only thing you're doing is totally consumed with your job, I don't believe that you can be the best that you can be.
Thank you. That's the word.
Yeah.
That's a really big word in terms of finding other things you love besides your profession, even if you may love your profession. So I really, thanks for the knowledge and thanks for the wisdom. Moving on to Dr. Beatrice, you've been all over the world. So you've jumped through continents, through countries, and you've been to 5 of the 7 continents. And I really do want to ask about that. So there are many different types of people throughout the world that you've educated. But I really want to focus on the similarities that you found when you were teaching different people around the world. And how do you think those similarities can push us towards a united future?
Well, I don't think I was teaching as much as I was in workshops all over the world. And your question is, how would you repeat that?
So there are many differences between people, with borders. Can you talk about the similarities you saw and how those similarities can unite us?
Well, I think that that everywhere that I went through Africa, China, Asia, there were people that, and when you are of my color and you're traveling with people that are dominantly of another color, you become a person that they want to see, look, and talk to. But I do and truly believe that wherever we go and whatever we do, that there is a personal interest in people wherever we are. However, I do think that we have to look at our objectives, what we are going to do, what type of programs we are in, and all the involvements that we have. For example, in China, I was in a graduate course there with China and Canada. And there were 81 of us, and there was only one Black person, and that was me.
Mm.
And so there were many different experiences that I had. However, I was very lucky when it was time to give papers, and they were selecting people to give papers at the Great Hall of the People. I was one of the persons that was selected, and I was very surprised because at that time I was working on my master's, and there were many people from all the universities, and they did select this one Black person. And so I've had many different experiences. Do not know why. At that time, some of the white people thought, oh, they're giving you privilege. And being that I was Black
Wow.
from America and didn't know what privileges were, I didn't realize I was having a privilege.
Mm.
That's actually I don't know the words for that. I think that's a very interesting point you brought up, that you don't know what privileges you have because living in America, Black people aren't afforded a lot of privileges. So I think that's a very unique
Right.
perspective. Thank you. Miss Velma. So I thought your biography was very interesting. You had 5 children, and you were also a working woman in Pittsburgh. I'm just very impressed that you still had the time to help the community,
Mhm.
having such a busy life. So what inspired you to start your community involvement, even though you had other demands at the time?
Well, I was with the 5 children that I have, like I said, I was helping out in the community, I was working, doing things in the community. And with the 5 children, that kept me busy. But then they were busy also. They were always involved in the community also. My son, he helped out at the YOU. He was always involved in taking the teenagers to other cities to participate in the YMCA, YWCA. And they were always doing things and working in the community, singing, going around with one of the ladies who would take children around to sing at different local churches.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And oh, I could go on and on and on. And I did waitress work and met up with quite a few celebrities and just stayed busy and made sure they were busy. And they enjoyed living in the community. And I remember the Girl Scouts, the children was involved with that Girl Scouts, and my son with the Boy Scouts. And I want to keep saying but different things in the past there that's coming to light and everything with my age and just stayed involved as much as I could until I was start working and it just kept me all day long and working and coming home and getting my household organized together. And when I was needed, like I said, I would be involved in the community. And, and they had different things going on in the community, parades, and people would come up and sell their wares, whatever they made or sewed.
So it sounds like you basically went to wherever you were needed and you wanted to help people wherever,
Mhm.
whenever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very admirable. Like I really appreciate that.
I'm still doing.
Mm-hmm. And what else can I say?
I'm still doing it.
I have many more
I
questions.
was
I have many more questions. So
okay.
if you wanna think about them, don't worry, I have endless questions. Well, in the time slot. But back to you, Miss Nancy. So likewise, you served in the community your whole life, but you've also been in the church your whole life. And I wanted to know, are these two intertwined for you? And can you speak about how connected are these two, community involvement and church involvement? How are they connected in your life?
Well, I, a lot of what I did in the community was not church connected, but some of what I did in the church was community connected. And over the years, I've been involved with a lot of stuff. There were organizations that I was involved with that were making changes. I worked at one time with League of Women. I was a member of League of Women Voters at one time. And we always were concerned with issues that had to do with equality for women and minorities and things like that. I worked initially with a group, and it ended up being an agency, the Center for Victims of Violent Crime. And we were concerned with an issue. In the church, I've mainly been concerned with issues around diversity, and have actually do training because our church years ago at a general convention passed a resolution that people in positions of leadership should have anti-racism training. And
That's important. That's definitely important, especially today.
Yes.
pardon?
I said that's definitely important, especially today.
Yeah, well, we've been doing this for years, and I have been involved with it for I guess over 20 years. And so that's principally been the focus of my work in the church. That's involved outside of my parish. Inside my church, the church to which I belong, of course, there have been just the normal kinds of things you get involved with, belong to a book group and some other stuff. But the issues that have to do with the community have mainly been racial issues, and as I said, have involved anti-racism training, as well as identifying other issues that needed to be worked on or changed or that sort of thing.
So I like the fact that it seemed like your church involvement and your community involvement weren't exactly one and the same.
They were not.
And I think that's very important, especially for Black people today. Like a lot of the younger generation, they're not in the church, but it's still okay to know that you can still serve the community without being in the church. Not saying that, you don't have to be in the church, but I think it's important to know that community involvement is that's not the only place where you can impact lives. So that's a very important point.
Well, there are many ways to approach things, and some of the ways really do not have anything to do with the church. But there are other ways that the church goes about it. And I think most of my concern as I've worked in the church is actually working on issues as they relate to the church. I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not, but issues that relate to the church. I may work on those same issues outside of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
I
like
would
a microcosm.
do other organizations. Some of the community things I've done have been through my sorority, because we, of course, have many community interests and initiatives.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Moving on to Dr. Patrice. I'm not sure if this is a loaded question or not, but I'd love to ask it either way. As one of the first African-American teachers at Ellis School in Pittsburgh, how was the education system, or how have you seen the education system changing for the better for Black students throughout your 27 years of teaching? And what changes would you still like to see as America struggles to become more inclusive and tolerant and accepting?
Well, not only have I taught at Ellis School and been the first Black there, I also taught in Virginia, also in segregated schools. And I also taught some here in the city schools. And if you compare more or less what is happening in the private schools, that the education that is set up more geared to college, going to colleges, and a lot of the schools, other schools, is trying to get students there to educate them. Anytime, not anytime, so I can only talk about my time. When you are in a situation and you are the only minority, there are certain problems and certain issues that you have to deal with, and you have to be very strong, and you have to really depend on yourself and love yourself, and work as diligently as you can. And I found that being at the Ellis School, that the students, I love them. They were there all the time to work and to do exactly what you had, your program and their program, and that was wonderful. But since I was there, when I first went in, there were just about 2 Blacks in each class, and now you have the school much more integrated, and you have Black teachers. Another Black teacher didn't come in until my 20th year.
Wow.
And
out of 27 years, the next one came in on your 20th year?
on my 20th year.
Oh gosh.
And I think that now that I have gone back for certain awards and things that they give you, I have seen that they have many different teachers and people of many persuasions in positions at the school. And I think that is good, not only for that, but it's for the students as well. There was something else that I wanted to say, and as I was telling the people before you came in, Mary McLeod Bethune, I might be one of the only ones that are here that heard her speak. I am not a Pittsburgher, and so I have been in the North and in the South. And in the South at that time, it was the Black church and the Black colleges that we could, they would have many different speakers. And Mary McLeod Bethune spoke at my college, and I'll never forget that, because we were just so enthralled at that time that a woman was a college president. And also she had a relationship with the President of the United States. And that was wonderful. And I do think that a lot of my experiences in the private schools is because I have traveled a lot. I can bring in many different experiences, and I have met many different Black Americans in South Africa. I've met Bishop Tutu, went to his church, saw this beautiful Black angel, came here and decided that I was going to make Black angels of what I do. I was also at an affair where Mandela was there.
Oh wow.
And so I tried to bring those experiences with me. And I never in this world thought that I would have been at an affair where Mandela would have been there, but he was caged in pretty much so no one could harm him. But I think that I was there and Mandela was there. You know, I highlight that.
Oh, wonderful.
It's wonderful. And I noticed that Miss Nancy, and sort of touched on this a little bit, Doctor, I wanted to ask both of you this question since you're part of the same sorority, but what does sisterhood mean to the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated? Either one of you can answer.
Go ahead, B.
Nancy, you're going to ask? You're the oldest. I'll give you that privilege. It means, it's very hard to describe. It means that you have an environment, an association with very smart and educated Black women, and not narrow-minded people, but people who are doing things for people all over the world and trying to be a part of that and associating with that and loving one another. And on top of that, to have a vice president, AKA, is wonderful.
Oh, that's lovely. Miss Nancy?
I've been in the sorority for a long time. In 2 years, I will have been in the sorority for 75 years, and I will be a diamond.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Nice. Congratulations.
Right. Thank you.
Wow.
I went to the sorority in college. The college experience is one of sisterhood and where you learn a lot. Uh, and you learn your first service stuff there, but you also learn a lot about uh, organizations. You learn a lot about leadership, uh, that kind of thing. Once you have left college, it is the incredible thing is that you always have a contact pretty much wherever you go.
Mm.
And that makes a difference. After college, we kind of shift to being more service oriented, more community focused. But the sister is there, and the relationship is there, and that's your support system if you don't have any other, and it's your basic support system anyway. I've had friends who, when they were going somewhere, I'd say, well, don't forget to call so and so. And even though they didn't know anybody, that person would do whatever they needed and put them in contact with whatever they needed, particularly if they were moving someplace they didn't know for a job. But it's that kind of thing. It has been for me a very important relationship.
Yeah, and my sister is also an AKA.
Well, then you know the answer to the question.
I always like to hear different.
So what happened to you?
Excuse me?
So what happened to you?
Well, I just went to college and got the educated college experience. So that's the baseline.
So did I.
Yeah, I think that's the baseline that all Black people get when they go to a higher education. Yeah. But I'm switching over to Miss Velma Jackson. You mentioned that one of your favorite scriptures is Psalm 118, verse 24. And that is, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And as you've lived through many historical events and periods in African American history and American history, because Black history is American history, what has made you glad throughout the times?
Scripture and verse made me glad that I'm still here in my 90s.
Mm.
And I was glad that I had my children and raised them. That made me glad. Also made me glad that my parents were able to see them growing up. That has made me glad also. And made me glad to be around family and friends. This is the day which the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. So I try to keep how should I say, like to keep a friendly atmosphere, a friendly conversation, and glad that I'm able to talk to people. Enjoy being around people. So that has made me glad in quite a few ways.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I really think that ties into your community work, because you mentioned earlier that you just did community work just because that's what you do. And I'm sure that's made you glad as well. Like the importance of family and your greater family, the community of Pittsburgh and the community of where you are at the time, helping each other. I think that's so important. And
Yes, it is.
I really want to follow up with, I want to follow up on that. Talking about your community efforts, you've done a lot of outreach efforts, including working with Toys for Tots. You've done a lot of, you've done a lot of grassroots efforts, being on the ground. and food distribution as well. Can you talk about what your favorite outreach effort was? What particular act of service was your favorite throughout your history, and what made it your favorite?
The one of the favorites that I enjoyed being around Toys for Tots and giving out food, clothing for people that wanted it, needed it. And the name of that was called the North Side Partnership Project. And that organization, sponsored by Reverend Eleanor Williams. And she at the old McKnocker School. And so therefore added on the word mall, MALL.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Northside Partnership Project Mall. And also he's a pastor. I'll say Reverend Eleanor Williams is a pastor of On the Wall Ministries. He did a lot of street projects, different communities, talking to them and giving them information, and also had vacation Bible school at a couple of the communities, and she enjoyed talking to people. And also she had the shirt selling, getting the shirts out. It's called doing support for the community.
Yeah. So, what made that? I suppose what made that like your favorite outreach effort?
Yeah, that was one of my favorites, and it still is favorites. Of doing that, and I was interested in my former church of doing different things at our church and in that community also, and reaching out to people that joined the church and working in the church. And that was doing things that I love doing and still doing when I'm able to.
It sounds extremely fulfilling. So thank you for answering the question. This question is kind of going out to all three ladies. So what advice do you have for people who want to serve in the community but haven't exactly found their niche yet? As Miss Nancy mentioned earlier, there are many ways to serve in the community. You just kind of have to find your place. But what advice do you have for people who haven't exactly found what they're interested in when wanting to serve the community? And how should they try to go about finding that?
That's a good question. Community service.
Just do it.
For me, community service was kind of in my DNA because of what my parents did. And my dad was an incredible guy. But I think that if you look around your church, if you look around organizations you belong to, I think also you there has to be something that you're interested in and have a commitment to. But I don't believe complaining about anything you're going to do anything about. So if there's something you're unhappy about, then I think that's where you start.
Oh, that's good advice. That's good advice. Because I complain about a lot of stuff. So instead of complaining, maybe I should try to fix it.
I absolutely believe that if you're unwilling to do anything about it, don't complain.
Just leave it in peace, right?
Yeah.
My mother used to always tell me, now that you complained about it, what are you going to do to fix it?
Precisely.
Right.
So that's what we have to do.
Exactly. Right. Do you have anything to add, Doctor?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that I was brought up, my father was a preacher. So when you're brought up in the church, and if you are the type of person that feels good for you about yourself, that you can willingly hold a hand out to help someone else and move forward. But it's important to love yourself and be able to be able to stretch your will and your imagination and see what is going on in the world.
Hmm.
And I think that that will help in these cases.
So get more creative in what you want to solve. Is that kind of what your message is?
Yes, yes, yes. And it has to come from within you.
Hmm.
You can't depend on other people's wishes and their
Right.
desires. It has to come from within you.
Mhm.
Okay, that's very spiritual. I definitely agree with that. And there is a push for, I feel like younger people push for being happy. And community service is no different. You want to be happy in what you're doing for people. So I think that advice is great. Miss Velma, did you want to add on to that?
Well, I can say you mentioned how to get involved. They know a person in the community that's a council member. Different communities have I'll say, have a special day to have their meeting about doing work in the community, and they could go to whoever's president, and they can get some information, advice from them that's in the community, go about doing what they would like to do. Or also they can go downtown, what is it, the city county building,
Yeah.
and talk to one of those members on the community or the council board, and get advice from them, and then they can talk to their representative of their district and get information to get involved in doing things that they would love to do and want to do.
So good old fashioned, just walking in and asking everybody, what's available? What can I help
Mhm.
with? I think that's great advice.
Mhm.
So,
But may I say that I've been on the board for Women's Space East for about 15 years or more, and helping women that have been brutally attacked and in bad situations and things of that sort.
Mm.
I think I think that it's a great thing to do, and not only that, we can look at ourselves and see what's happening and things, making sure that this kinds of things don't happen to us and our family and our children. But being out there and seeing what is going on uh, sometimes will help you guide you in a more positive way.
right. So seeing what the problems are and just kind of picking a problem and solving it. Thank you. Thank you.
I think what we have to realize that each one of us is here for a purpose, and we just have to find that purpose and get involved. And we're
Right.
getting to the end of our program, Toby, and we have to start winding down. So, is there any final remarks that we'd like to add? Anyone interested in giving us a final remark that we can go forward and make this world a better place?
I usually like to ask if there is a book you would recommend somebody to read. Any good books that you've read recently or have read throughout your life and thought that that would be a positive add-on to somebody's life.
One of the most significant things I've been reading recently during Lent is a Lenten study, which is very interesting. It's it's I'm trying to remember the organization that's sponsoring it now, but
Mm.
what they're doing, which is why it's of interest to me, they're telling slave stories,
Mm.
stories of slaves who tried to escape. They then attach that to a Bible story that is similar, and then move on with a discussion that ties the two together. And that's one of the most interesting things I've seen recently. And I read a lot.
Well, we need to thank everyone for coming out this evening. We also need to sharing your lives with us, and the information that you share was really wonderful. I mean, this is the stuff that we need to hear on a regular basis. Toby, do you have any final remarks that you'd like to add?
Any final remarks? No, just join us for the 10th annual Legacy Luncheon on March 27th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow us on our newly made Instagram at Rankin Mon V PGH on Instagram, and follow us on our Facebook as well. You can type in Rankin Mon Valley Pittsburgh NCNW, and we'll get right into it. So we will be emailing the flyers out for the Legacy Luncheons shortly. But if you want quick access to it, you can always check out our Facebook and Instagram.
And also, how about becoming a member of the National Council of Negro Women, especially
Yes.
the Rankin, Mon Valley, Pittsburgh unit? We can use as many wonderful people out there, and we'll make the group grow and be a better place, and we'll accomplish so much in our communities. So please take that into consideration. Become a member because we need you.
Couldn't agree more, Miss Pat.
All right. Ladies, thank you so very much. The information you said was valuable. And it's great when you hear testimonies from people who have been in the action, have been there. So thank you once again very much. And Toby, it was great sharing these moments with you today. And be safe in New York and come on back to Pittsburgh.
I sure will.
Okay.
Thank you all to our lovely ladies.
Right.
Have a great night.
Right. And everybody have a great, safe holiday coming up, Easter. Thank you.
Mm.